We're going to talk about federal trademark dilution. There are also state trademark dilution laws, but federal trademark dilution is a little bit different in that it only applies to famous marks. So all the images you see here should have something in common, which is these are marks that are famous nationwide, which is required for dilution under the federal laws. So that's what the little map is for. All of these are brands that are household names that everyone is familiar with. If you're only famous in a particular region or only famous in a particular segment of the economy, that is not enough to establish federal rights, although you could have state rights. Now let's talk about the details of federal dilution. So how it's different than more traditional trademark infringement is that no confusion is required. But you still have to be using the goods on goods and services, or rather the mark, for there to be dilution. Now there are two types. There is what's called blurring and also what's called tarnishment. Now, those are images of blurring and tarnishment, but that's not what they mean in the dilution sense. What we're talking about with blurring is that even though no one is confused, the distinctive value of the mark could be impaired. So for example, if Nike was not used just by the sports manufacturer, but by car manufacturers and piano companies, the value of that word Nike would be less distinctive. On the other hand, if you used Nike in a way that was negative, then that mark could be tarnished. Now, the Candyland is there to remind us of a case involving the trademark Candyland that was found to be used in a tarnishing way because it was associated with the porn site. Many cases of tarnishment actually involve cases that either are have unwholesome associations or they're shoddy quality, although shoddy quality I think comes up less often. So, blurring, there are actually factors for in the statute to try to help us assess what really is blurring, some of which are somewhat similar to the likelihood of confusion marks. The first one is similarity. Now, when we talk about similarity of marks, we're talking about not are they necessarily substantially similar, which is not required in the statute, but are they similar enough so that people might have less value associated with the original. There's also a degree of distinctiveness, how distinct is the original, and exclusivity of use or recognition. So for example, Nike is not a common word, so that's highly exclusive. Intent to associate or actual association could occur, but that would not always happen. The higher it is, the more likely that the trademark is in fact diluted. Now everybody knows the word Nike and the logo. It is definitely famous, could apply to a federal trademark dilution claim. Now what about Nike Pal International? Well, there was a company called Nike Pal International and they made laboratory goods. So nobody's going to be confused between buying laboratory goods and sporting wear. Plus the logos are pretty distinct. But that doesn't mean there's not a federal dilution claim. So here, the word Nike is exactly the same for both. It's true Nike Pal added Pal and international, but the core trademark is still highly similar. Also, the word Nike and the little swoosh are both very distinctive and exclusive. There's nothing else that's really similar to that on the market. All factors that help make the case much stronger that if you let Nike Pal and Nike Little and all these other Nike related things proliferate, it would diminish the value of the original Nike mark. So that's a little bit of an overview of the factors, but there are exclusions which would apply to either kind of dilution. So exclusions include non-commercial use, news reporting, comparative advertisement, such as our sneakers look like Nike or our beverage tastes like Coke, as well as criticizing the original mark. There's also something called fair use, which is a little more complicated, but just to let you know, there are exclusions to dilution. So hopefully that helps to let you know that even without any confusion, the trademark owner, if the trademark is famous, may have a claim for federal dilution.